Two companies, one product, 100 years of war. No bullets were fired, no soldiers died, but billions of dollars were spent, empires were built and broken, and the lives of ordinary people were shaped by a battle they didn't even know they were fighting. This is the story of the greatest rivalry in the history of capitalism, and it all started with a headache. The origin of two legends. It started with a headache. In 1886, a pharmacist named John Stiff Pemberton was trying to find a cure for morphine addiction. He had been wounded in the Civil War, became dependent on the drug, and spent years experimenting with different remedies in his Atlanta laboratory. One afternoon, he mixed together a syrup of coca leaves and cola nuts, added some carbonated water, and accidentally invented the most valuable beverage brand in human history. He called it Coca-Cola. Pemberton had no idea what he had created. He sold it locally at a pharmacy soda fountain for 5 cents a glass, marketing it as a brain tonic and intellectual beverage. In its first year, Coca-Cola sold an average of 9 drinks per day. 9. Today, the company sells over 2 billion servings every single day. Pemberton died just 2 years after creating his formula. Before he passed, he sold the majority of his stake in the recipe for just $1,200. The man who bought it, a businessman named Asa Griggs Candler, would transform that formula into a global empire. Now, let's talk about the other side of this story. Just 7 years after Coca-Cola was born, a pharmacist in New Bern, North Carolina, named Caleb Bradham was mixing drinks of his own. In 1893, he created a carbonated beverage made from cola nuts, sugar, water, caramel, and lemon oil. He called it Brad's Drink. It was meant to aid digestion, boost energy, and taste good while doing it. In 1898, he renamed it Pepsi Cola. The name came from the digestive enzyme pepsin and the cola nuts used in the recipe. And just like that, the stage was set. 2 sodas, 2 pharmacists, 2 American stories, and 1 war that would last over a century. But in the beginning, it was no contest. Coca-Cola had a decade head start, aggressive distribution, and a businessman in Candler who understood marketing long before the word meant what it means today. Candler gave away free coupons for Coca-Cola to doctors, wrote the brand name on everything he could find, and built a distribution network that stretched across America. Pepsi, by comparison, was a local drink trying to survive. And for a long time, survive was all it could do. Pepsi's near-death experience. The early 20th century was not kind to Pepsi Cola. The company went bankrupt twice. The first time was in 1923, when the price of sugar collapsed after World War I had artificially inflated it. Caleb Bradham had stockpiled sugar at peak prices, betting the market would stay high. It didn't. The bet destroyed him. He lost the company, lost his buildings, and spent the rest of his life working as a pharmacist again, the same job he had started with before creating one of the world's most famous soft drinks. A series of owners tried to revive the brand over the next decade with mixed results. Then came Roy McGargill, who purchased the brand in 1928. He too failed. The Great Depression hit, and Pepsi was teetering on the edge of extinction. But then, in 1931, a candy manufacturer named Charles Guth bought Pepsi, and Guth made a decision that changed everything. He doubled the bottle size and kept the price the same. While Coca-Cola was selling 6.5 ounces for a nickel, Pepsi started selling 12 ounces for the same nickel. During the Great Depression, when every single penny mattered to every single American family, this was a masterstroke. You got twice as much for the same price. Pepsi ran a jingle on the radio, the first jingle ever broadcast nationally in the United States, that went like this. Pepsi Cola hits the spot. 12 full ounces. That's a lot. Twice as much for a nickel too. Pepsi Cola is the drink for you. Simple, effective, devastating to Coca-Cola. Pepsi's sales exploded. They went from near total collapse to genuine national competition in just a few years. For the first time, Coca-Cola had to look over its shoulder. The war had officially begun. The Cola Wars heat up. Through the 1940s and 1950s, both companies grew alongside America itself. The post-war economic boom filled American pockets with money, and soft drinks were an affordable luxury that almost everyone could enjoy. Coca-Cola had supply chains running through military bases during World War II. General Eisenhower personally requested that Coca-Cola bottling plants be set up near military theaters. The brand became synonymous with America, with freedom, with home. Soldiers drank it in the Pacific. They drank it in Europe. When they came back, they brought the habit with them. Pepsi wasn't sitting still either. In 1963, Pepsi launched one of the most significant advertising campaigns in business history. They called it the Pepsi Generation. The strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of competing with Coca-Cola on legacy or tradition, Pepsi went after the young. The message was, Coke is your parents' drink. Pepsi is yours. The campaign spoke directly to baby boomers who were coming of age and didn't want to be told what to do, what to wear, or what to drink by the generation before them. Pepsi positioned itself as the rebellious choice, the forward-looking choice, the choice of a new America. It worked enormously well. But Coca-Cola had one major advantage that money couldn't easily buy: cultural ubiquity. By the 1960s, Coca-Cola was everywhere. It wasn't just a drink, it was Christmas. Since 1931, Coca-Cola's advertising had shaped the very image of Santa Claus that we know today. The jolly, red-suited man with white trim didn't become universally standardized until Coca-Cola's marketing department made it so. Coke was baseball games and diners and drive-in movies. It was woven into the fabric of American life in a way that went beyond brand loyalty. It was cultural identity. Pepsi had to fight for every inch, and by the late 1970s, they found the weapon they were looking for. The Pepsi Challenge. In 1975, Pepsi ran a marketing experiment in Texas that shook the entire industry to its core. It was called the Pepsi Challenge, and the premise was almost insultingly simple. Pepsi set up tables in shopping malls, supermarkets, and public spaces across America. They poured 2 unlabeled cups of cola, one Pepsi, one Coke, and asked people to taste both and choose which one they preferred. The result? More people chose Pepsi. Not just in one location, not just once. Consistently, across thousands of trials, people who identified as Coca-Cola drinkers chose Pepsi in blind taste tests. Pepsi filmed these reactions and turned them into television commercials. The people on screen were genuinely surprised. Some of them laughed. Some looked confused. The message was unmistakable. Even Coke drinkers prefer Pepsi. They just don't know it yet. Coca-Cola's internal research teams replicated the test. They got the same results. It sent the company into what can only be described as a quiet panic. Executives at Coca-Cola spent years trying to understand why. What they eventually concluded was that Pepsi's formula was slightly sweeter, which made it perform better in small sip tests. In a full glass, over the course of an entire meal, the preference often reversed. But in a quick sip test, which is all the Pepsi Challenge was, sweet wins every time. This insight did not stop the panic. If anything, it fueled a decision that would go down as one of the greatest corporate blunders in the history of modern business. The New Coke Disaster. On April 23, 1985, Coca-Cola made an announcement that stunned the world. They were changing the formula. After 99 years, the secret recipe that had conquered the planet was being retired. In its place was something called New Coke, a sweeter, reformulated version of the drink designed to beat Pepsi at its own game. Coca-Cola had spent 4 years and $4 million developing and testing the new formula. They had conducted taste tests with nearly 200,000 consumers. In those tests, New Coke beat both Pepsi and Original Coke. What the tests failed to measure was how people felt about Coke. The backlash was immediate, overwhelming, and unlike anything corporate America had ever seen. Consumers didn't just dislike New Coke, they were furious. They felt personally betrayed. People who hadn't drunk a Coca-Cola in years suddenly called the company's hotline to express outrage. Coca-Cola received nearly 400,000 complaint calls and letters in the months following the announcement. One letter, addressed to the company's CEO, began, "Shame on you." A retired U.S. senator called the change un-American. A psychiatrist who spoke to journalists compared the public grief to a death in the family. People in the South, where Coke had been born, treated it as a cultural attack. Groups formed to boycott New Coke and demand the original recipe back. Protesters gathered outside Coca-Cola's headquarters in Atlanta. Meanwhile, Pepsi was laughing. They ran ads celebrating their victory. Pepsi CEO called it the marketing blunder of the century, and he wasn't wrong. 79 days after announcing New Coke, Coca-Cola reversed course entirely. On July 11, 1985, the company brought back the original formula under the name Coca-Cola Classic. The public response was immediate and overwhelming, this time in joy. News anchors covered the announcement live. People cheered. The hotline that had been flooded with complaints was now flooded with thank yous. And here's the twist that no one planned. Coca-Cola Classic outsold both New Coke and Pepsi in the months that followed the return. The controversy had reminded Americans of something they hadn't fully felt before, how much they loved Coca-Cola. Some marketing analysts have suggested the entire saga was a deliberate stunt designed to re-energize the brand. Coca-Cola has always denied this. The truth, based on everything we know, is that it was a genuine mistake and an accidental stroke of genius.
The celebrity arms race. The 1980s transformed the cola wars from a business competition into a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Pepsi fired the first shot in 1983 when they signed Michael Jackson, at the time the biggest pop star on the planet, to a $5 million endorsement deal. It was the largest celebrity endorsement deal in history up to that point. The commercials were events. Children gathered around televisions to watch them. Michael Jackson wasn't just advertising Pepsi. He was making Pepsi feel like the center of pop culture itself. Coca-Cola responded with its own roster of celebrities, but neither company could fully anticipate what was coming next in the celebrity wars. In 1984, during the filming of a Pepsi commercial, a pyrotechnic accident set Michael Jackson's hair on fire. The footage, captured by crew cameras, became one of the most talked about incidents in entertainment history. Jackson suffered second-degree burns. The story dominated news cycles for weeks. And yet, somehow, it didn't kill the Pepsi-Jackson partnership. They continued working together. The controversy only seemed to keep both names in the headlines longer. Through the late 1980s and into the 1990s, the celebrity endorsement war escalated on both sides. Pepsi signed Madonna, Tina Turner, Ray Charles, and eventually a young pop singer named Britney Spears in one of the most memorable ad campaigns of the late 90s. Coca-Cola countered with its own roster, and both companies poured hundreds of millions of dollars into advertising budgets that made the entertainment industry take notice. The cola wars weren't just selling soda anymore. They were shaping popular culture.
Going global. While the advertising battle raged at home, both companies understood that the real prize lay far beyond America's borders. Coca-Cola had been thinking globally since the 1920s. By the time World War II ended, it had bottling plants on multiple continents and was already establishing itself as a symbol of American prosperity wherever U.S. influence spread. In some parts of the world, Coca-Cola arrived before reliable electricity or running water. Pepsi found its international footing through a particularly unlikely channel, the Soviet Union. In 1959, Vice President Richard Nixon was in Moscow for the American National Exhibition when he famously engaged Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev in an impromptu debate about capitalism and communism in front of a Pepsi display. The exchange became known as the kitchen debate, and photographs of Khrushchev holding a Pepsi cup ran in newspapers around the world. It was unplanned, unpaid-for advertising of the highest possible order. By 1972, Pepsi had become the first American consumer product sold in the Soviet Union. In exchange for permission to operate there, Pepsi accepted payment not in rubles, which were not convertible currency, but in stolyachная vodka, which they then distributed in Western markets. It was perhaps the most creative barter arrangement in Cold War history.
Coca-Cola countered by becoming the official soft drink of the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, the same year the Soviet Union boycotted the Games. Every American victory, every gold medal moment, every flag raised, Coca-Cola was there, in the frame, on the screen, in the cup. The global battle intensified through the 1990s as the fall of the Berlin Wall and the opening of new markets in Eastern Europe, Asia, and Latin America created billions of potential new customers. Both companies raced to establish distribution networks, sign local bottling partners, and plant their flags in cities and towns that had never tasted either product. Today, both brands are available in nearly every country on Earth. There are only a handful of nations, largely under international sanctions, where neither Coca-Cola nor Pepsi is officially sold. Everywhere else, you can find them both, often side by side, often at the same price, waiting for you to choose.
The modern battlefield. By the 2000s, the cola wars had shifted in ways that neither Pemberton nor Bradham could ever have imagined. The battlefield expanded. It was no longer just cola. Both companies recognized that the soft drink market was changing. Younger consumers were turning away from sugary, carbonated drinks and toward water, energy drinks, juices, and tea. The companies that survived this shift would be the ones that adapted. Coca-Cola bought vitamin water, Smart Water, and Honest Tea. They invested in energy drinks and coffee brands. They diversified at a pace that would have seemed unthinkable to a company once so singularly focused on a single brown fizzy liquid. PepsiCo, which had become a food and beverage conglomerate through its merger with Frito-Lay in 1965, leaned into that diversification even harder. Today, PepsiCo owns Lay's, Doritos, Cheetos, Quaker Oats, Gatorade, Tropicana, and dozens of other major brands. When you measure the two companies by total revenue, PepsiCo has actually surpassed Coca-Cola in several recent years, not because Pepsi outsells Coke and soda, but because the snack business is enormous. Coca-Cola, by contrast, remained more focused on beverages, and in beverages, Coke is still the king. Coca-Cola consistently outsells Pepsi in carbonated soft drinks globally. It controls a larger share of the cola market. In the eternal question, Coke or Pepsi, the numbers say most people, across most of the world, still reach for the red can. But the gap is narrower than it has ever been, and the competition has never been more complex. Why it still matters. So here we are, over a century after a pharmacist in Atlanta mixed a headache remedy that accidentally became the world's most recognized brand, and a pharmacist in North Carolina created a digestive drink that would challenge it for 100 years. The war is still ongoing. It is ongoing in marketing boardrooms where billion-dollar campaigns are debated and designed. It is ongoing in supermarket aisle placements, negotiated with surgical precision. It is ongoing every time a restaurant signs an exclusive pouring contract, every time a stadium vendor opens a cooler, every time a vending machine hums to life in a school hallway. And it is ongoing in something less tangible, but perhaps more important than any of that, in identity. People don't just prefer one over the other, they are proud of their preference. Ask someone which they prefer, and they will tell you quickly, firmly, and often with a hint of judgment for the opposing choice. It is one of the last remaining trivial debates in modern life that somehow manages to feel meaningful. Coke or Pepsi? Red or blue? Nostalgia or ambition? Tradition or disruption? The cola wars are not just a business story. They are an American story. A story about competition and reinvention, about marketing and identity, about how 2 bottles of flavored sugar water became the unlikely mirrors in which an entire civilization chose to see itself. 100 years, billions of dollars, trillions of servings, and the war is nowhere near over.